Okay, hello everyone. This is the first episode on the build-in public for negotiation. To remind you, we are spending 30 days on negotiation skills. We use the book Getting to Yes, which is a book from Roger Fisher and William Ury, that is based on true negotiation in geopolitics, and they made it a method. It's called the Harvard negotiation method. We're going through the concept, we're going through the books, some use cases, some negotiation situation, just to make sure that in 30 days we achieve 80% of the skills we need to become better at negotiating. So to start off the journey at becoming a better negotiation, I use a quick method that is used also by Tim Ferriss, is the DIS method. Deconstruct, select, sequence, and stakes. We're going to deep dive into it quickly. But first, a quick intro just to remind you where we are right now. We are at the stage where we bought the book, or at least that's what I did. I bought the book and I bought it after having followed a 2-day course on negotiation. So it was a workshop on negotiation. I spent 2 weeks. If you want some more information about the workshop, I can give you the details. But the basis on that course has been the book itself. Also, I wanted to share with you my current situation on this method. It's all about testing at this stage. I want to test the Harvard method on different situations, different scenarios, negotiating with banks, negotiating with my clients and my prospects on contracts and deals and prices. And also you can use it in real estate if you want to buy a house, if you want to buy an apartment. This can be a really helpful situation, and we're going to go and deep dive into the method for this. But also it applies a lot of things. For example, if you want to negotiate your salary, if you have a raise, a promotion, I think having those skills and principles can be really helpful. And I'm starting this build-in public on negotiation because I want to explore new skills. So that's part of my goal in 2026, is to explore a new skill. And I had a lot of curiosity and enthusiasm during this class on negotiation, and I want to share it with you. Why build in public? Because then I'm accountable. So if I post and share it with you, hopefully you enjoy it and I have to post more. So it's a nudge for me, a social nudge to help me go through the process of learning. What you're trying to achieve now, I think in 30 days, the main goal is to own the skill and to be able also to activate the skill on demand. So every time you are in a situation where you need to negotiate, you have to think about it immediately and think Harvard method and think win-win. So as I mentioned, it's important because we are often in a negotiating scenario and more often than you think. So as I mentioned, you can negotiate on your raise, on your promotion. If you have a job, a regular job, you will have to negotiate with different stakeholders. So you have your manager, of course, but then they have to sell it to HR. That could be something. If you are negotiating deals with supplier on contracts, that will be really helpful to foster and boost creativity and make you think a little bit outside of the box. And also, of course, with clients, when you have to sell to clients, often it's also a multi-stakeholder deal because your client can be the one deciding and the one paying the bill. Sometimes it isn't, and they have to go through their purchasing team. So you have to manage different stakeholders, you'll have to manage different situations, and the Harvard method is perfect for that. And we'll go through all the principles right away. The first main tip that you have to bear in mind, the main mistake we often do, and the main thing and the first thing you have to think about is we often don't know what we are talking about. We are going into bargaining, which is not negotiating, but bargaining. It's a bit more rough because we don't know what we're talking about. We didn't define the principal common object of the negotiation. So every time you have a negotiation, you enter in a negotiation or you feel you're negotiating, make sure you define the principal common object. That is, what am I talking about? What am I negotiating about? If we are talking about a raise or promotion, are we talking about the actual amount? Are we talking about roles and responsibilities? If I am buying a car, for example, am I talking about the price of the car? Am I talking about something else? So defining the principal common object is a first link you make with your with the partner you're negotiating with, in order to make sure you are basically agreeing on what you're negotiating on. And for this first video, I wanted to deep dive into 4 elements. First, how to deconstruct the different steps and different principles of the method, which one we're going to select in order to start our journey. And I'm going to start analyzing some videos, some negotiation situations in the future, and then sequencing what's the best sequence to start off, and finishing with stakes. So to go into deconstruction. So when you go into the book and into the method, there are 4 checkpoints that you have to validate, and 3 main objectives, 3 main goals you want to see when you're negotiating and entering into negotiation. So first, the prerequisites for a negotiation is that you need to have a conflict of interest that exists. So conflict of interest means that you have 2 people with slightly different interests, slightly different goals regarding a situation, a contract, a price, regarding a need, for example. The second point is to have contact. You have to negotiate. You have to have minimum 2 people in the room. You cannot negotiate with yourself. I mean, you can, but usually you probably would be better off if you are more aligned with yourself than negotiating, but I'll leave that to you. The second or the third point is to make sure that the demands exist. If there's no demand, if there's no claim, if nobody asks anything, nothing from the other, there is no negotiation possible. So you have to first have this connection. And then an important thing into negotiation is that the other party has the power to say no. If I put a gun on your head and I start a negotiation, this is not a negotiation. Because if you are threatened, if you are put under pressure, this is not a negotiating situation. So 4 checkpoints. There is a conflict of interest. You have a contact between 2 people, at least, or minimum. There is a demand. There is something that exists. And the other party has the power to say no. If you disagree at the end of the day, no big deal. Everybody has the right to say no. So those are the 4 checkpoints to go into a negotiation. And then once you enter that negotiation, the Harvard method is also called the win-win method. There are 3 main goals that you want to seek when you are entering in the negotiation. The 3 main goals when you negotiate within the Harvard method and within the method of this book is to get more out of this deal, out of this negotiation, get better, and also maintain the relationship. So you will make sure that those 3 goals are reached once you enter a negotiating deal with somebody. Get more, get better, maintain the relationship. And with that in mind, you will, with the other party, because it's a collaboration with the other party, enlarge the pie. The whole goal and the whole principle of the Harvard method is a win-win, but also it's make sure that you enlarge the pie. You don't just bargain on a price. You try to make sure that you and the other party are making the deal bigger, increasing the value, the general value of what you're negotiating on. So, of course, once you've said that, that's a general principle. Bear that in mind, because every time you are entering into negotiation, prerequisites are pretty easy to identify. But then once you have the goals in your head, get more, get better, and maintain the relationship, it shifts already a little bit the way you approach any negotiation. And then about selection now. So let's select 4 principles that are underlying inside the method. First, use criterias, objective criterias. We usually negotiate on interests and not positions. We'll go into that a little bit later. We generate options of mutual or for mutual benefit. So that's a part of getting better and enlarging the pie. And also we separate people from the problem. So those are 4 principles you have to bear in mind as well. and you can already start to try. For example, use objective criteria. The thing is, often when we try to negotiate, for example, the simple way would be, what about I negotiate my salary? Okay, the first thing to do is to criterize the offer and make sure that your main objective, which is the salary I'm negotiating on, is measurable. So how do you criterize an offer? It's based on objective and factual and quantitative facts, I would say. Easy for job offers. Do I have the information about a similar job in my company and the salary that is associated with? If I am an executive in a company, are in the range of, for example, in euro, 100,000 euro, 150, 200,000? Does it depend on the size of the company? So the goal here, and it's probably one of the main aspects, is once you've made sure of the objective or the main objective you're working on, the common object, which is here the salary and the amount in euro or dollars that you want to negotiate on, it's to make sure you have enough criteria. How do I compare my ask, let's say, to have 100,000 euros a year in salary, based on experience, industry, based on the role in the organization? You will have to gather information in order to criterize the offer and make sure it's factual and objective. That's the first step. The second principle is to negotiate on interests and not positions. So what's the difference? A position is a dogma, is a belief. You're not negotiating on your belief. You're not negotiating on the belief of the other person, because beliefs are what they are. They are subjective. And remember, with rule number one, we want to have an objective criteria. So positions have to be identified, but also put aside in order to make sure that you are not bargaining on positions or beliefs. If I own a company and I believe that I'm the head of the company and nobody has to be paid higher than me, that's a belief. Then if I have a salesperson coming into my company, which is a salesperson is driving the business, I won't be allowing that person to have a higher salary than I have. And sometimes this situation happens in companies. It's a very basic example, but if I have this prejudice, this belief in this dogma on my company, I won't hire salespeople that will generate value and have an opportunity to be paid higher as me as a head of a company. Often you see that salespeople are the most paid in a company, even higher than the CEO, for example, because they are able to generate value and they are rewarded on that, and the way their salary is designed is for them to have that reward. So never negotiate on position, negotiate on interest, because when you're on position, you also have judgment into play, and you will disqualify the other party, because if we don't believe the same thing, if we don't have the same dogma, if we don't have the same software in our head, running in the back of our head, we will enter into a fight of positions. We will enter into a fight of, I have to disqualify your belief in order for me to win in the bargain. And in order for me to win, you will have to lose. You'll have to lose on your prejudice, on your dogma, on your belief, on whatever principle you have in your head. So never negotiate on position. But instead of that, you negotiate on interests. We can have different beliefs. We can have different software running in our head, different principles, but we both have interests. And once you've identified the interests that you have yourself and that your other party in front of you has, it's way easier to understand what they need, what they want. If I am negotiating with one of my clients, for example, and my client has to deal with the purchase department, or his manager, for example, he's not the one signing the deal, then I will have to take into account that the interest of my client, of my counterparty, is, of course, make sure that if I'm selling a product, if I'm selling a service, make sure that the service delivers based on the needs, but also make sure that he looks good regarding to his managers, regarding to the purchase department, to make sure that he looks good in terms of managing a budget, in terms of finding the right solution, in terms of being able to negotiate a deal. Those are interests that can be major interest or minor interest that I need to identify when I'm talking with the person. So once you have that in mind, this means that you have to find the interests. You have certain interests. It can be about money, it can be about status, it can be about assignments, it can be about time, it can be about anything. You have some interest into a deal. In the context of the deal, you have some interest, and the counterparty you're negotiating with has also interest. And once you've identified it, you can broaden the negotiation. It's not anymore a negotiation on price, it's a negotiation on interest. So once we are there, we can enter the third step, which is generating options for mutual benefits. So that's part of growing the pie, enlarging the pie. And here you enter in a creative step with your counterparty, with the person you're negotiating with. The goal here in the third step, in this third principle, is to find a wide range of solutions. And you have the interest of your counterparty. You have your own interest in mind. And you are able now to bargain interest in order to make sure that you find solutions and find a wider range of solutions, of way of addressing the problem, in order to make sure that you satisfy different interests. And of course, the goal is to satisfy your interest and the interest of the person in front of you. And fourth principle is to separate people from the problem. You want to maintain the relationship. That's one of the main goals when you are entering the Harvard method of negotiation. So when we say separate, or when the book says separate people from the problem, you have to build a relationship where you're not fighting each other face to face, but you're going side by side and being hard on the problem. You both have interests, you both have identified solution to satisfy those interests. And so the main situation, the problem, the negotiation problem that you're working on is the one you have to tackle, is the one you have to be hard on. You have to be hard on the problem, but to solve it together, but still be soft on the relationship. Separate the people from the problem, work with them, collaborate, maintain the relationship, as goal number 3 says it. Be hard on the problem. You are together collaborating in order to solve the problem, and be soft on the relationship, which means having the empathy to understand the interests of the other person, having the assertivity to make sure your interests are holding up and are still taking into account. So that leaves us with 4 principles to wrap up. Use objective criteria, because that's a basis for also your arguments. 2, negotiate on interests, not positions. Interest is what you need, what's your interest, and what's the other person's interest. So you have to also be curious about what they need. 3, once you have this package, criteria and interest, you can generate mutual benefit because you have a better understanding of the general problem. It's not only about bargaining on the price or having a discussion on the price. It's make sure that you cover as many interests as possible. And 4th is to separate people from the problem. You are together working and walking side by side to be hard on the problem, but you are collaborating with your counterparty. So that leaves us with the 4 principles. And so now what I'm testing into is to sequence it into any discussion I have. It could be a video conference, could be a meeting, an on-site meeting with my clients. And every time I try to do the same thing. So first step is before you prepare. What do you prepare? You prepare the main and the common object of negotiation to make sure you will be able to, or at least you are sure with yourself on what you're negotiating on. Is it the price? Is it the conditions? Is it the location? Is it a process? Is it an organization? It depends. I prepare also the criteria. What's my benchmark to make sure that I have some facts that I checked? And also I think about the different interests that I have. Major interest, minor interest for myself and for my counterparty. And then once I have that, you enter the meeting. But you enter the meeting in a landscape that you already know a little bit. And it's way easier now to listen to the other and to be creative. Because remember, you want to grow the pie. You want to generate more options. And you want to make the other talk, because the other is probably not into the Harvard negotiation method. So during the negotiation, during the interaction, you will be more careful and listen to what's important, which is the interest of the other person. And once you have that, you will be able to find solution to get better and get more. And also after that, I try as much as possible to reflect on what's been discovered during the call, to make sure I have enough of my major interests satisfied to go through with the deal or not. So I take a little step back to digest the conversation and then decide if I go on the deal or not. For example, sometimes when you are working on a service deal, you are sharing the price and the time that you will spend on an assignment. And you might have interest in terms of money, but you also might have interest in terms of connection, in terms of network, in terms of next opportunities. That's why sometimes you rather decrease the price of an initial deal to build the confidence and to build the relationship with your client, with your prospect at that stage. So you accept to reduce your profitability on the first deal because you expect that thanks to your delivery, you'll be able to expand the network. You'll be able to sell a little bit more. But that's a choice you have to make. It depends on the client, depends on the situation, depends on the interest of each other. I won't reduce my profitability on a deal if I have no vision or if I don't believe that I can build a strong relationship with that client, with that prospect. If it's a one shot, there's no need for me. It's not in my interest to reduce and sell my services low. So that's also a matter where your interests and your objective criteria enter into the deal. So that's now stakes. My goal is to try it out, so I try it out as much as possible in different deals. I'm going to share it with you and share the feedbacks I've been able to find when negotiating with banks, when negotiating with clients, with prospects, when negotiating with real estate agents. I'll try to do as much as possible. And also, if you have some situations that you want to have feedback on, well, share it with us and we'll see and make probably an episode on that and see how we can analyze the situation and make sure you negotiate better. Well, that's all for this first episode. It's been a lot of concepts. Next up will be a bit more practical, I hope so. In any case, you have here a map of what are the main thing to bear in mind when it comes to negotiations. So see you soon.